hello everybody. Welcome back to Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming through a feminist lens. Today, Alex, Matt and Jem, we are going to be talking about, what did I call it? Chosen Ones. And the pun, probably the best pun I think I've ever come up with, is the born supremacy, people who are born supreme and superior to other people. Before we start, a quick reminder that we now have a Patreon page. So if you want to support us, you can go there on patreon.com/gamingthesystem. And we've got a couple of options there, and you'll get access to our monthly special episodes. So very exciting. So what we're talking about is how you are assigned worth the second you are born. So the first thing they do is they lift you up and go, right, penis, this one goes in this X value, vagina goes in that value, and anything in between, they are going to be just discriminated against for their entire life, denied that they exist. And so instantly that's as soon as happened. White babies are assigned as superior than black or brown babies. So much is placed on people as soon as they're born. So to start off with, bringing it to games, how often have you guys noticed that the chosen one happens to be chosen one because of the circumstances of their birth?
I had a different thought in my head when you came up with the topic, actually. It was more to do with, like, special powers or abilities rather than, like, as something relating to their birth or the circumstances of their birth. But I will have a think. And
I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing, really.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious one that came straight into my head was Skyrim, because you are Dragonborn. And you have the ability to shout, which sounds really funny out of context. But yeah, and having that power and it being unbeknownst to you until everyone suddenly realizes and they're like, "Oh, you're Dragonborn," and then you get all this special permissions and all this special treatment wherever you go, and people have these assumptions about you. But interestingly, of course, being a Skyrim game, you can make your character look however you want them to look within the various defined races and things. So yeah, that was interesting to think about in that way. I've lost my thread. I'm sorry, but yeah, because like there are definitely some more noble options within those races, and some less noble options. So you can kind of make it out to be the story that you want to tell in some ways. But yeah, I'm struggling to think of other examples. My brain's a little slow today. But no, it's interesting when you mention about how different characteristics are dismissed as being inferior at birth, and then I think disability has a lot to kind of talk about there in terms of the history of disability and how when you're born disabled, that's it can be immediately obvious, and it immediately throws all these assumptions and ideas about what your life is going to amount to by the people around you and society in general. And in certain ways, if we think about disability, very often any character with any physical or mental defect is either vilified or just not understood by a lot of the people around them, which I know is completely going off topic, but it's interesting to think about how different characteristics can set you on one path versus another. Definitely.
Yeah, especially like physical. I thought about that halfway through our last episode, but
Yeah.
that they're always in good shape, always no disabilities. Again, part
And certainly in the history of our royal family, you can argue that that sometimes any defect of that kind has been hushed up or hidden away, which is another problematic thing about nobility. Can't be seen to be defective, and there's a lot of pressure, I think, on nobility to be a certain way and to show themselves as being this idealized superior form of people, if that makes sense.
I think when I had the same kind of reaction as you, Alex, to the topic, and I think that so for me, the person that sort of sprung to mind was Aloy from Horizon, Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West, and I, because she's clearly a chosen one, who comes from very or appears to come from very kind of humble beginnings and a difficult childhood, and challenges and things. So I think for me, the chosen one is usually somebody who doesn't have the access to all of the privileges that you would see with, say, somebody from royalty or from nobility, but who still has, some amazing thing that's going to help save the world. What I think is interesting is that what usually ends up happening is that when they realize that they are the chosen one, then it becomes clear that they are in fact a member of the nobility, or they were in fact a member of the royal family, or something like that. So you find that out down the line, that even though they were brought up in humble surroundings, they are actually, when it comes down to it, from proper blood, from good stock, and I think that is quite problematic. And I think the point you have just made about disability, Alex, is so important. It's one of the reasons why I think it's so good that we discuss these issues on this podcast, because it's not something that I had considered in that way. And, I think it's so good to think about these things and to recognize that it's not just about the chosen one, it's also about the discarded ones, like who are we saying isn't allowed to join this special club, and how do we make choices about who can't save the world, and I think even if that's not explicitly stated, because it isn't in games, they're just, it's just absent. People with disabilities are just absent from games. Even in that scenario, it's explicit in its absence. It's, it's a comment made on society just by simply excluding certain people from these roles. So I think that's really important to
I was watching back an episode of ours recently, and Jem, you mentioned, I don't know whether it was an article or a book called The Symbolic Annihilation of Women.
Yeah, it's a theory.
It's such a profound awareness of this phenomenon, in that by always the absence, what you exclude, what you do not choose, who are not chosen, how that impacts the perception of disabled people in the real world, and that it's always something to be pitied, not, and I pity that person because they think they're not going to have as good as access to be able to thrive. But that's not because of the disability, it's because of the society that excludes them. And to something you said then a moment, just Jem, about I've got two things. I'm going to give Christopher Nolan credit for something.
Really?
I amazed myself.
Yeah.
And it comes to the reason why almost everyone, every protagonist, and every person who is centered in gun is a 30-something straight white man from middle to upper class. Just because those are the people who have always had access to the resources that allow them to get into the room to be making those things. Because someone who has been brought up in poverty, they're not going to have the resources that people who born into middle class or middle to upper class have to go, oh yes, I've got the time and the resources to spend building up to do something I want. Now, have either of you seen the new Avatar film?
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I left halfway
I
through.
thought it was crap. But
I've heard such
just,
bad things about it.
I was just very disappointed. I think I was expecting more after over 10 years. I could go on, I could have a whole episode about it if you like. But yeah, no, I was very disappointed. Yes.
We could do an episode on it because it's essentially a game because of how it's all just CGI. Now, so partially because technology in general has improved so much over the it's been 15 years since the first one.
Yeah.
We're used to incredible visuals, whereas in 2008, I watched that film so many times because it was the most jaw-dropping thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved the first one. I don't know if it was because I was so young back then. I felt younger then. But yeah, I couldn't fault the first one. I mean, obviously now, looking back, I'm like, oh, actually, it's got some slightly not good storyline aspects and different things going on with it. But yeah, sorry I interrupted you, Matt.
No, that's it. That's the point in the not only that the technology is, you go, so I'm not too bothered about that now. But the biggest thing I notice is that society in America and the UK and hopefully growing, like the higher level of what is accepted in society and what is unacceptable has evolved. So obviously it's him going, right, we're going to take Native Americans and tribal culture, make them blue and steal their culture.
Yeah.
And so that's the basis of it. And 15 years ago, because society in general hadn't evolved to going, oh yeah, we can't have that. That's mad. You can't have that. So now going straight into thinking the visuals aren't too much to be bothered by.
No, I thought they were actually worse in some parts. But yeah.
Yeah, it just makes you go, leaves you flat.
And it was so long. It was over 3 hours long.
Wow.
It was so long. It was too long. It was basically the same plot, but with more water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the summary I would give you.
And the acting was absolutely fucking abominable.
It made me angry that they used exactly the same dialogue for exactly the same characters at certain points. I was just like, it just made me angry. It's like, you've had how many years to write it? I don't know.
It's the tribal culture that they are copying is just fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
And they have the fact that they had the water people Pacific Islander. They got Pacific Islander tattoos.
They went for that one. Yeah.
And they don't use contractions. They think what makes tribal speak is when you don't say don't. You say, we do not want this. You do not do that. You cannot do that. And bringing it to my point about who's in the room making things, David Cameron is a straight white, middle-aged, middle to upper class man, and he's been.
You mean James Cameron?
Sorry, what did I say?
David,
yes. Oh, he's even worse.
Yeah, both of them are. Yeah.
He works in a fucking food bank. He was a prime minister, and now he works in a food bank. That's fucking mental. So yeah, fuck him. James Cameron, he's been that his entire life, and I have a there's a lot of shit talk I've talked about Christopher Nolan for only making white man films, so entirely himself. So him and David Cameron are basically the same person, but at least Christopher Nolan only makes films about him and people like him, whereas David Cameron goes, I'm so brilliant, I'm going to make films about tribal culture. I'm going to be amazing doing it. David Cameron, James Cameron.
Yeah.
Sorry. Cameron, the director.
Yes, the director of Avatar. Yeah.
That's the point that I'm trying to make, is that it's okay. It's better to not pillage other people's culture and cheapen other people's culture. But then,
especially to do it with, extremely tropily and just sort of taking a very stereotypical and debunked idea of cultures, and I think that's what makes it even worse. It's just an old concept that's just being rolled back out again, and it's criminal, really.
To quote my English teacher from secondary school, you should only write about what you know. And clearly he's not writing about what he knows. He's just writing about his assumptions of what he knows, or his ideas of what people think Native American cultures are like. But they're not.
I mean, the sad thing is that there's so much inspiration out there.
Yeah.
Just create a whole new. I mean, talking about people being excluded from society, and now I've just, we've got lots and lots of like female science fiction writers who are often dismissed and ignored in history, and they come up with way better concepts than this.
That's when it comes to people is go, write about what you know, and if you want to make better stuff, expand your knowledge, but respecting that you don't own everything. Some things are not yours. You can learn about them and grow as a result of that. Christopher Nolan doesn't do that, but he does make the most stunning technical and visual stuff. That is, his stuff is only gotten better and better. Whereas James Cameron I said James that time. James Cameron writes about what he thinks he knows. And then when it comes to games and other creative things, the problem is you only have those middle-aged straight white men writing about what they know. Whereas the point is to get other people, the diversity, the insanely deep breadth of knowledge and nuance that comes with Maori culture, Native American culture. What you do is you bring them into the room and let them create something.
Yeah.
Like with the latest Predator film. That was awesome. That was
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's better. So yeah,
really, really good. The most fucking racist thing in the entire film is the son of the evil colonel who they left him behind, and he's just this. He is the whitest, most American person I've ever seen, and they've just put massively braided dreadlocks, which is the most racist. But the most racist thing is him jumping around, because that's what James Cameron's idea of.
A bit like Tarzan, I guess, but it was pretty bad. It was like the whole thing was baffling, but. I have so many things I could talk about.
Right, but you two need to do an episode.
Just shaming Avatar.
And me giving credit to Christopher Nolan. So
wow.
But what questions did I have? So we've gone through chosen attributes. We've got technically covered. Chosen attributes in terms of who happens to be chosen ones. Okay. Is there, or have you seen, or think of alternative kinds of characters that are not the chosen one archetype? So I think in terms of like, so instead of, say, like the Dragonborn, he's got powers.
Yeah.
Whereas, say, fuck, I had one on the tip of my tongue. So in Callisto Protocol, for example, you're just a pilot who gets caught up. You get a normal person who gets swept up in things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's something we should see more, or?
In some ways, it's like one of those another one of those sort of common storylines you see in a lot of films and games and TV, where it's like it's just bad luck. It's just someone who's got stuck in the middle of this thing and then has to fight their way out. That's I think that's reasonably common, but it is in that way you can be more diverse in who you choose to be the protagonist within that situation. I think, well, it's not saying you can't be more diverse with like the chosen one archetype, but it's easier to put someone who is not necessarily the norm into that situation, I think. So in some ways, yes, I think if we see more of that with more diverse protagonists, then that's definitely a good thing.
What do you think, Jim?
I had a thought, and then it went out of my head. Ask the question again and see if it triggers it.
Okay. Alternatives to the chosen one archetype, whether it's just something that needs to be changed, or normal people caught up in things.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like any games. I think you see that character, that sort of situation in MMOs quite a lot. So you just start off as you are just an ordinary person, and then, you know, after about 3 years of grinding, you are the hero. I think that happens in most of those. It's just you normally come from quite normal backgrounds, and you just work your way up. I mean, in some it's not. Some you are the hero, and you know you. But I mean, I think there is a thing to be said that, you know, I do play things like Stardew Valley and RimWorld, and play things like that, where you're kind of in Sims and all those games where you're living a real life, a real-ish life. But I think for the vast majority of people, it is about escapism, and it is about being the hero in the game. You want to be special, you want to be different, you want to have some unique skills that sets you apart from everyone else. So I think, you know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's so I think that, yes, there is a stereotype, but much as I was saying in our previous episode about royalty, I feel that sometimes that's just because of the world that we know, the world that we live in, that sets these boundaries as to what we expect from our heroes. In that, you know, we want to be special and unique, and that usually means having some amazing skill. I mean, if you think about like the Matrix, when you talk about the chosen one, I just keep thinking about Neo, and that's a really interesting thing because he doesn't think he's anything special, and then it turns out that he is, but is he? That's the whole thing. It's like, is he or isn't he? And at the end of the day, does it really matter? Is he just the person that they coalesce around, just the person that inspires everyone else to? So I suppose in a lot of ways he's kind of the anti-chosen one, because I don't think we ever find out really whether he was really the chosen one or whether he just kind of became the chosen one. And I think in a lot of ways that's perhaps a more healthy approach to the topic than a rite of birth. We all can be the chosen one. I mean, we can all be, and all that changes that is the circumstances within which we find ourselves. And some of those can be changed by us. Some of those can be changed by people with power. And some of those, can't be changed. They're just the hand that we're dealt. So I think it's an interesting way of exploring that.
Yeah, I think I really like what you brought up about bad luck, Alex.
Yeah,
I love the stories of people, because they're normally just people just going, I just want to get on with my job. Just leave me alone. I get on with my job. And next thing you know, you've been shot in the head.
Yeah.
With so that's how Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So I just thought, fed up, and now great. Now I've got Keanu Reeves in my head, which he was the saving grace of that game. He's the only reason it didn't just disappear forever. And now Idris Elba's going to be in the next bit. That's really cool.
Oh, cool. I hadn't heard that.
You crash land in your cargo ship because of terrorists, and it's that kind of thing. And the element of luck, a turn of fate that happens to catch you up in it, and you're set off on a journey because of that. I really like that. But there's the myth that people who have wealth and power, the fantasy of nobility and hereditary privilege, is that they should have that power because they're better, because they're superior. Whereas, so they just have it as a matter of course because they're nobles. But I think it's quite rare. It's harder to pick out people who they earn their power. So, for example, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Because you mostly you get stronger through games. People who, for example, Jem, have you played Outlast?
No.
I've watched playthroughs of it, and it's brilliant. It's hysterical. It's you're just a journalist, and you sneak into an asylum, and just everything goes to shit, and it's insane, and you just find a way to deal with it in the way that I think the blandest. He's faceless. This is how bland he is. Ethan in Resident Evil Biohazard and Village. What I would have liked to have seen, because he stays the same throughout. I would have liked him to just lose his shit as he goes further into the village, because that would have been, oh, come on then, come on, fucking have a go. I've been through enough. So I really enjoy that kind of archetype. Okay. Final question. So the dynamics of the chosen one archetype. So with Neo, what journey do we go on discovering They're sort of like, oh, I think I'm just a normal person. It turns out I'm the chosen one. And then their life changes after that. Do you think the dynamic that this chosen one archetype portrays in games, is it harmful in how gamers then view society?
I was reflecting on this only the other day because I got Horizon Forbidden West for Christmas because I hadn't yet played it. So I've been starting playing it, and I've very much noticed something that is hard to ignore when you're playing as Aloy, and that is that she has a very strong saviour complex now that she knows that she's the only one that can actually save the world. So in some ways it's justified, but a lot of the time she's literally, her dialogue will consist of, oh, I need to fix the problem, sorry, I'm too busy, I need to fix the big problem, there's a bigger problem that I need to deal with, and I'm the only one that can fix it, it's just me. That very much, thinking about her as a woman, that's very much the kind of role that a lot of women in society take up as caregivers, and they are the ones to fix all the problems and to help provide and look after the family unit. And if you think about the family unit as the entire world, in a lot of ways that is problematic when you think about it being portrayed by a female character. Is it just playing into that narrative of the woman as caregiver, as someone with a massive saviour complex that needs to fix everything, make sure everything's right, and it only has to be her? Is that harmful? Probably a little bit, but then that also happens with a lot of male chosen ones as well, that they get this massive saviour complex after they realise they have this special power, and naturally that's the path of the game, is to do all these heroic things and save lots of people. But saviour complexes and saviour, like wanting to be a saviour, is actually quite a harmful thing. In some ways, there was like this. Funny enough, it was some training I had in work. There's this negative triangle of thought where you've got the victim, the saviour, and then something else I can't remember on the third one, the corners of the triangle, and they all relate to each other. This is not a very good example because I'm not explaining it very well. Then there's a positive side of the triangle, which is what we should all try to do a little bit more. Oh, I think the other one was enabler or something like that. It all kind of feeds into each other. But then there's more positive sides. It's in my notebook somewhere. I can check if you are desperate to know what the positive sides are. But yeah, I think there are some harmful ideas that it might feed into there. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
It's very codependent, isn't it? That whole idea of, in order to be, there needs to be somebody who can save you, and there needs to be somebody who is the bad guy. I think, actually, I mean, this isn't a game, but I think one of my favourite kind of things about The Chosen One was what they did with Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, which I was a massive fan of. I know there's problematic stuff behind the scenes, but we didn't know that back then. And I love the fact that, Buffy is the chosen one, and there can be only one vampire slayer at any one time, and then she dies. She seems to do that quite a lot, and then we have Faith, who's another vampire slayer, because Buffy had died briefly. A new one had sort of been born, and well, not born, but kind of like unveiled, I guess. They just sit in waiting, and then they become when they're needed. But what was really nice was that in the end, she sort of opens, they through all sorts of stuff, they make everyone, all these women, and make them vampire slayers, so they are all able to look after the world, and everyone can look after themselves. And then it was a really nice way to kind of push back against the chosen one trope. That again, coming back to what I was saying about Neo, I think there is this idea that actually we can all be the chosen one, and it's just about perspective. But I think as far as sort of games are concerned, it's the normal chosen one is somebody who's very humble. They don't know what they don't understand why everyone is putting so much pressure on them, and they don't want to do this. And then suddenly they come into their power, and then, like Alex says, they can get a little bit arrogant, really, or they can feel a little bit like all the pressure is on them. And I think that the point that Alex was making about what impact that has on female characters is really good, actually, and what it says about women's role in society. And I think it would be really interesting to properly analyse how male chosen ones and female chosen ones react to being the chosen one. I think, I feel like I'm sure somebody's done some research into that, but I feel like that's something to explore maybe in a future podcast of ours.
I found the triangles, by the way, for those of you interested. You can look up the drama triangle, which is the negative triangle. It's hilarious. There's the persecutor position, the rescuer position, and the victim position, all at different corners of the triangle. I don't know if you can read my writing. And then on the bottom, on the other hand, you've got the empowerment triangle, which is the positive triangle. So you've got the creator in the position of, I think it would have been in the position of rescuer, or is it coach? No, coach is in position of rescuer, and then the challenger as well. So there's like the positive and negative sides, but I'm sure there's lots of articles on the internet about those things if you wanted to look them up. But yeah, it just reminded me of that, really, that if you think about it in terms of having a rescuer, a victim, and a persecutor, which is a narrative in a lot of stories, having women as the rescuer, like, what does that say about society in general? But then if you think about it in a more positive way, or perhaps if we think about molding a game in that empowerment triangle, having a creator, a coach, and a challenger, how much more of a positive story does it then become? Something to think about, perhaps. I don't know.
There's the only thing I'd add to the savior narrative is just completely bang on. It's always the white savior.
Yes, that's a good point as well. Yeah,
that's been endemic forever. And you're right. The problem with people, like, we aspire to nobility, but what we really aspire to is I'd like to have the wealth and resources to give me agency to do the things that I want to do. And the bigger the difference between the wealth gap in general is that once, I think it's ivory tower syndrome. Once, in order to have an impact to save people, you need to have the wealth and resources to get into the ivory tower. And then once you're there, it's so easy to go, oh, it's really nice and comfortable up here. I'm safe up here. And if I don't rock the boat, then I can make more money and I'll sell out everyone else who put me here, Kiss Dharma. And this is a problem with, in America as well. There are you can count on one hand the Democrats in the House who don't take corporate donations, so they are uncorrupted. But the establishment there has groomed them so that they don't fight them on anything. And in that, so the bigger the gap between the haves and the haves not, the easier it is to be seduced by it. And then you can tell yourself that, yes, I am the savior. I am important. I know what I'm doing. And so it becomes about them and not about supporting people. And I think that triangle is really interesting because it's a bit like if an architect was like putting a building together. And so, you know what, disabled people are really discriminated against, and I'm going to build my building with them in mind to make it as accessible as possible. They're not talking to any disabled people. And then when a disabled person says, oh, this is a really good idea, have you thought about this? And then that's when that twist happens where they either go, "Oh yeah, sorry, I've been really just inside my own head. That's an idea I never would have thought of. I'll consult with lots of disabled people and do that." But what is so much easier and seductive is to go, "No, you don't. No, don't. Just leave it to me. I know what I'm doing. Leave it to me to save you."
But I think that, power corrupts, doesn't it? And absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And to be the chosen one, you have absolutes. What that means, it is putting you in that position of having power over, the whole of humanity's safety or whatever. And so it probably should corrupt them a lot more than it often does, to be fair.
I think it's either the corruption. There's the corruption side, which is the Keir Starmer side, and Wes fucking Streeting. Oh, I hate him. And then there's the neutralising side. So that's what's happened. So you go, I'm not corrupt. I don't take corporate money, but they've neutralised them so they don't fight. So that's the nature of it. Another director I will throw under the bus is Denis Villeneuve and Dune, he said, "Oh, it's not." Someone asked him if it was a white saviour film, and he said, "No, it's actually about the mixing of cultures and how difficult it is for a white man to rule over sand people who we've just ripped off Middle Eastern culture again." And he's another one who's so far up his own arse, he's back to normal again.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. I think that'll do today.
I think we've covered a lot of bases there. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you everyone for watching or listening. Remember, we'll be there every Thursday at 7 p.m. with a new episode. We've got our entire back catalogue to go over in the meantime. So until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.